So, Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate came out recently, and yeah, the internet went wild with hate for this thing. And I totally understand why. Megamind is one of those underrated gems that when it first came out, it didn't do super well at the box office, but over time, got a really big following. And I get it, I love Megamind too. I think it was way better than it had any right to be. And I have been sad that it didn't do well enough financially to get more sequels or stuff made from it. Especially with it coming out the same year as Despicable Me. Yeah, I liked Megamind way better than Despicable Me, but Despicable Me is the anti-villain that won. But then they announced there was gonna be a sequel and a TV show, and when we saw the trailer, it looked really rough compared to the first one, and yeah, naturally a lot of people were upset by this. But I am gonna rise to Megamind's defense for a moment because I think this film was treated a little too harshly. Now, I'm not saying this necessarily because I think the film was really, really good. In fact, I've watched it, and for what it actually is, it's just mediocrely kind of bad. For what the studio is trying to make it into, yeah, that can be called a train wreck. And I think that is the biggest problem with the new Megamind movie. I think the biggest problem is not the product in and of itself, but the way the studio has chosen to market the film. Because this is not a true sequel to Megamind. This wasn't made by the same animation studio that made the first movie. It wasn't designed from its inception to be a sequel to Megamind. What it actually is a long episode of the TV show that establishes the world of the TV show with new characters and set things up for future episodes so you can kind of get a feel for this world as opposed to how it's changed from the movie. And in and of itself, this long episode is a great tool that studios have used for decades to help ease you into the TV show versus the movie from where it came from. Some will take a full episode movie and chop it up into 4 or 5 episodes so it'll all link together. So when you first watch the series, you'll be introduced to everything you need right off the bat, and I think that really works well. And sometimes they release that long episode as a TV movie to say, hey look, the adventures are going to continue in this show. Come watch this special event, and you can be a part of the show as it begins to air. I think that does really well. But when you take your long episode and market it and deliver it as a full-length feature sequel follow-up to that original movie, I think that is just setting up the show and the series for disaster. Because what it really does is it hurts the brand overall and sets a really bad taste in the mouth of everyone who hears about the upcoming show, and I also think it does a big disservice to the artists and writers involved in the show. Let me explain a couple things about how TV shows work different than movies. Now, it's no secret that on average, your animated show is not going to look nearly as good as a full-length animated feature. But have you ever wondered as to why that is? It's not that the people who are working on these shows are less talented than the ones working in the movies, but the people working in TV have a lot more obstacles than the feature film group does. Because when you're working on a feature animated film, you have time and you have budget. Now granted, I know still a lot of these get rushed and there's a lot of issues with those, but compared to TV shows, you have a lot more time and a lot more money. On average, from beginning to end on production, a full-length animated feature can take about 4 years between getting the script and the story right, making the characters, doing the animation, getting the voiceover acting. All of it's done in about 4 years. Now, going over to TV animation, however, you do not have anywhere close to that amount of time. You get about 1.5 years, maybe 2, to make a full season of animation. And that's me being generous with the time. It may take even less. So when you think about how much animation a team has to crank out to make a full season of animation, we're talking every episode is roughly around 22 minutes. You get maybe 12 episodes a season. When you do the math, that's about 4.5 hours of animated content. So feature animation gets 4 years to make about 1.5 hours, whereas these TV teams get about 1.5 years, maybe 2, to make 4.5 hours, maybe more. So yeah, it's no wonder they look different. But TV animation in and of itself is a great art, and I do not want to say anything bad about these talented artists, because that's what they are. Talented artists who can work fast under time frames. That's impressive. But it's super unfair to hold them to this crazy high expectation with these limitations. That's like pinning your local diner's food versus a gourmet chef's. You don't have the time that a gourmet chef has. You're a diner, you gotta throw out food real quick. So they're both special within their own rights, but you can't compare them side by side. But I kinda get why this is a trend. If we look back at history, we'll see how it has kind of worked and kind of not. So let's look at what I presume to be the first time this has happened. I could be wrong, but it's the earliest one that I know of. A little movie by the name of The Return of Jafar. So obviously most people are familiar with Aladdin. This was the quote-unquote follow-up sequel to Aladdin. But what it really was starting the Aladdin TV show, because we can see the Aladdin TV show started right around the same time, has the exact same animation style, was made by the exact same studio, with the exact same voice cast. Yeah, this was setting it up because they wanted Iago to be part of the main group with Aladdin, but they needed to give him a redemption arc, because otherwise it didn't make sense with the first movie. And fair! But they marketed this like it was the true sequel to Aladdin. And yeah, when people saw the trailer for this, they were confused. The animation looked bad, and it didn't look nearly as good as the first one did, but people bought it. They came out in droves. It sold 15 million VHSs, earning $300 million on a budget of $5 million. So, as much as I hate to say it, because yes, it was critically panned and a lot of people said it wasn't very good and it did not look nearly as good as the first movie did, it still made a lot of money. Hence why we got so many direct-to-video sequels. This was the first one. But speaking of direct-to-video sequels, that's what a lot of these were. A lot of these were either to start an animated show, to salvage a show that never made it to air, but they had a couple episodes lying around, so make it a movie. Whether it just be a couple episodes from the show that was already going, or it ended the series. These were all over the place. And I think in hindsight, you can look back and see what kind of impact that had on Disney and its shows and the quality of its productions at the time. Because if you weren't around in the late 90s, early 2000s, let me tell you, we all started getting a pretty bad taste in our mouth, causing us to think that anything direct-to-video sequel was going to be utter garbage, and unless it goes to a theater, it's not even worth my time. Hence, killing any show that was going to be associated with that movie, and thus the eventual death of the Disney direct-to-video sequels. But now, going back to Megamind 2, I know a lot of people are going to make the argument that regardless of how it was marketed, the movie is still bad. And yeah, it's not good. But also I want to make a point that there have been a lot of other DreamWorks properties transferred into shows that have not received near this amount of backlash, and as someone who's seen most, if not all of these, Megamind's not dramatically worse than some of these. Yeah, some of the DreamWorks shows are just really good, and others are just cheap cash grabs, and yeah, this feels just like another cheap cash grab. Not especially awful compared to the other ones, just par for the course of cheap cash grabs. I don't know, I may have just been watching a lot of extra shows with my nieces that I just think are way worse than this, so maybe take my opinion with a grain of salt. I don't think this uproar would have happened if this movie wasn't presented the way that it was. Because there have been lots of shows, even from DreamWorks, that have come out that most people have never panned like they have Megamind, because they did not try to market a TV movie to bring this to light. You didn't see that with Penguins of Madagascar, Kung Fu Panda, Legends of Awesomeness. You didn't get that with the Puss in Boots show. You didn't get that with Trolls or Boss Baby. Okay, you got a lot of people complaining about Trolls and Boss Baby, but that's just because they didn't like the original IP, but that's different. The rest of the shows made a pretty smooth transition. Yeah, for the most part. Because they marketed for what it was, a TV show. And to my knowledge, they did fine. And if they didn't do fine, they sure are making a lot of them for them not to have done well. So that's really my whole point, is This, I think, is what did in Megamind more than anything else. Had they just made it a show, put it up on streaming, and left it alone without trying to make it a sequel, then I think it would have done a lot better, or at least just kind of been more flying under the radar, and most people would have gotten mad about it. But you could argue the negative publicity caused more people to watch it and found more people to find out about it, because, you know, you may have not heard of every show I just listed off or shown you footage of and think, wait, there's 2 shows of the Croods? Or Puss in Boots got a show? Yeah, you know, not everybody knows that these are around, so maybe that is kind of what they were thinking. But I don't know. I don't work for DreamWorks. I haven't talked to anybody who works at DreamWorks about this, so I can't tell you what they were thinking, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. Take all of that with a grain of salt. But yeah, just to reiterate, I think this kind of marketing is just really bad overall. It's bad for the consumer. It's bad for the artists involved. It may be a temporary gain for the show just to get people's eyes on it, but I think overall it's going to leave a far more negative taste in its mouth. And then once you start making more shows, it's just going to lead more to that. So I still think that this is not a great marketing practice, but well, let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you think this is ridiculous? Have you watched the show? Have you think it's bad? Have you think it's good? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!